When I was in high school, and I played basketball, and she was always on the other team, and she was very good.
At 101, Eva Marie Saint should be celebrated as Hollywood royalty. Instead, she's living a life that's quietly devastating. She's the forgotten Oscar winner who once starred with Cary Grant and Marlon Brando. Her son's recent drug crisis forced her into court battles at age 100. She watches baseball alone. The woman who defended Alfred Hitchcock against assault claims now faces a reality that even her famous resilience can't fix. The truth about her isolation is heartbreaking. Eva Marie Saint was born on July 4, 1924, in Newark, New Jersey. The fact that she arrived on Independence Day felt almost symbolic. While the rest of the country celebrated freedom with fireworks and parades, she entered a world that was far from glamorous. Newark was a working-class city, better known for its factories than for producing stars. She was born to Quaker parents during the height of the Jazz Age, just 5 years before the stock market crash that would send the country spiraling into the Great Depression. The irony of her birth date was striking. America was celebrating liberty, and yet she would have to fight through rejection, typecasting, and prejudice to carve out a place for herself in Hollywood. In time, she would not only succeed, but also become one of the most respected actresses in the business and the oldest living Academy Award winner. Her parents were John Merle Saint and Eva Marie Rice. Her father had served as a second lieutenant in the United States Army. Her mother, the daughter of William M. Rice and Adelaide L. Russell Rice, carried the name Eva Marie. When she married John Merle Saint in 1921, her full name passed directly to her daughter. Eva Marie Saint literally inherited her mother's first and middle names. It was not a stage name designed for Hollywood appeal, but her real name passed down through her family. This inheritance gave her an identity that was both authentic and symbolic. Her mother lived from 1896 to 1987, long enough to see her daughter rise to fame and win the Academy Award. The name that lit up theater marquees and movie screens was the same one her mother had carried her entire life. Her career nearly ended before it began. She was cast in the Broadway play Mr. Roberts, opposite Henry Fonda. The role of the nurse seemed like her big break, and her friends and family traveled to watch her in out-of-town previews. Everything looked perfect, until just before opening night, when director Joshua Logan told her she was being replaced. The reason stunned her. They said she looked too innocent, and the producers feared the audience would worry too much about her when she appeared alongside David Wayne's character. She was replaced by Jocelyn Brando, the sister of Marlon Brando. The humiliation was enormous. Her family had already seen her perform, and now she had to explain why she would not be on the Broadway stage after all. The rejection left her in tears. Alone in her dressing room, she broke down completely. Henry Fonda himself came to comfort her, telling her about times when he had been fired or turned away from roles. One by one, the rest of the cast visited her, each sharing their own stories of rejection and failure. They told her this was part of the profession and that it was better to experience such a blow early in her career. Their kindness helped, but the pain lingered. On the train ride home to Queens, she cried so hard she could barely see. During that ride, she made herself a promise that would change her life. She told herself she could never allow such a disappointment to wound her again. If she let rejection cut that deeply, she would not survive in acting, or even in life. By the time the train reached Flushing, she had made up her mind. She would continue pursuing her dream, but she would build an emotional shield around herself. From then on, she would never let rejection pierce her heart in the same way. Later, she admitted, "I'll never be that disappointed in life again." And she meant it. That vow became her armor, and it carried her through the challenges that came next. Her first job in television was far from glamorous. She was paid $15 to sit at a little table and clap for other performers, pretending to enjoy shows she had no part in. The money was so small that it barely covered the cost of a new dress she needed to look presentable, leaving her in debt even after she was paid. Still, she kept going, knowing every small step mattered if she wanted to succeed. Back in 1942, she had entered Bowling Green State University with the idea of becoming an elementary school teacher like her mother. She joined the Delta Gamma sorority, and there, a coincidence changed her path. The head of the drama department, Dr. Eldon T. Smith, lived in the sorority house as their house father. He noticed her distinctive voice and convinced her to audition for the play Personal Appearance. She had never acted before, and the role was of a glamorous Hollywood lady, nothing like the innocent college student she was. But when she appeared in full makeup and a tight dress, even her closest friends didn't recognize her. She laughed later, saying they weren't very imaginative. She also performed as Rosalind in As You Like It, her only Shakespeare role ever. The experience transformed her so completely that she asked her father if she could switch her major from education to theater. He gave her the best advice of her life. "Honey, whatever you want to do, you just do your best." After graduating in 1946, she made a deal with her parents that changed everything. She would return to their home in Queens and had exactly 1 year to prove she could make a living as an actress. If she failed, she would give up and return to teaching. That 1-year ultimatum added intense pressure. Eva Marie Saint began her journey into show business in the 1940s, with a humble job as a page at NBC in New York. She gave tours, demonstrated television sets, and spoke about the wonders of this exciting new form of entertainment. It may have seemed like a small role, but it gave her a rare look into television at the moment it was being born. Her first on-screen appearance came in 1946 and 1947 on the live NBC show Campus Hoopla. Those performances were captured on rare kinescope and are now preserved in the Library of Congress. By 1949, she was appearing on Bonnie Maid's versatile varieties as one of the singing Bonnie Maids in the live commercials. That same year, Life magazine featured her in a story that showed her struggles as a young actress in New York City, trying to survive while earning only small amounts from her early television work. These experiences gave her an early understanding of television production and introduced her to people who would later help shape her career. Her reputation quickly grew through steady work on serious live television dramas. From 1948 to 1950, she appeared regularly on Actors Studio, a groundbreaking show that brought method acting to television and was tied to Lee Strasberg's famous acting school. She proved she could handle demanding roles under the pressure of live broadcast. From 1950 to 1951, she was featured on The Prudential Family Playhouse, a CBS anthology series that adapted Broadway plays and best-selling novels. The show attracted some of the biggest names of the era, including Grace Kelly, Helen Hayes, and Jessica Tandy, and Saint held her own among them. These roles required flawless live performances, and she delivered every time, showing that she belonged in the top ranks of television talent. Her career took a dramatic step forward in 1953 when she played Thelma in Horton Foote's The Trip to Bountiful. The television version aired on March 1, 1953, before moving to Broadway later that year. Sharing the stage with the legendary Lillian Gish and Joe Van Fleet, Saint impressed audiences and critics alike. She earned the Drama Critics Award and soon after won a Tony Award for Best Featured Actress in a Play in 1954. The production also caught the eye of director Elia Kazan, who saw in her a natural talent for film. It was this performance that convinced him she was the right choice for his upcoming movie, On the Waterfront. By the mid-1950s, she was also earning major recognition in television. In 1955, she was nominated for an Emmy for Best Actress in a single performance for her role in Paddy Chayefsky's Middle of the Night, opposite E.G. Marshall. That same year, she earned another nomination for the musical version of Our Town, where she performed alongside Paul Newman and Frank Sinatra. The production was directed by Delbert Mann and featured music by Nelson Riddle, adding even more prestige. These nominations came at a time when television was still fighting for artistic credibility, and Saint's recognition showed she was already considered one of the finest dramatic actresses on the small screen. Her success earned her the nickname the Helen Hayes of television, an extraordinary comparison since Hayes was already celebrated as the First Lady of American theater. This was given to her before she had even appeared in a single feature film, proof of how highly she was regarded. The fact that she achieved this reputation in the unforgiving world of live television made it all the more impressive. Her leap to film came with On the Waterfront in 1954, and the circumstances of her casting were unlike anything else in Hollywood. Kazan used a psychological method to test her chemistry with Marlon Brando, giving them conflicting instructions without telling them what the other had been told. Saint remembered how Brando teased her during this first meeting, leaving her unsettled, and how she stayed off balance through the entire shoot. This was exactly what Kazan wanted, as it gave her performance a natural vulnerability that fit her character. During filming, Brando's unpredictable improvisation even brought her to tears, including one moment when he flipped her skirt unexpectedly. Though upsetting, it added to the raw emotion audiences later saw on screen. Her casting itself was unusual. She never went through a traditional audition. Instead, Kazan relied on her chemistry with Brando. At one point, Frank Sinatra nearly had the role of Terry Malloy after Brando initially turned it down. He even went to a costume fitting in Hoboken, where the movie was filmed. But Kazan arranged a screen test with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward to show what an actor like Brando could bring to the part. Within a week, Brando signed on, and Saint was officially cast as Edie Doyle. For her performance, she was paid just $7,500, which would be around $85,000 today. It was a modest amount, especially compared to what followed. By 1956, she was making $50,000 for That Certain Feeling with Bob Hope, and in 1957, she earned $100,000 for Raintree County with Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift. In just 3 years, her salary had increased more than 13 times, a rare rise for a woman in 1950s Hollywood. The Academy Awards that year turned her into an overnight star. On March 30th, 1955, at the RKO Pantages Theater, she won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. She beat out established names like Claire Trevor, Nina Foch, Katie Jurado, and Jan Sterling, making her victory one of the most stunning upsets in Oscar history. Frank Sinatra, ironically, the man who nearly starred opposite her, presented her with the award. Pregnant at the time, she joked to the audience that she might have the baby right there before delivering her emotional thanks. On the Waterfront went on to win 8 Oscars, tying records held by Gone with the Wind and From Here to Eternity. Her performance drew praise from critics as well. The New York Times review by A.H. Weiler called her a pretty and blonde artisan who does not have to depend on these attributes. It was a rare acknowledgement that her talent mattered more than her looks, setting her apart from the stereotype of the 1950s starlet. She also earned a BAFTA nomination for Most Promising Newcomer, solidifying her status as an international star. With both an Oscar and BAFTA recognition for her first film, She was suddenly one of the most sought-after actresses of Hollywood's golden age. Eva Marie Saint's career was filled with moments that shocked Hollywood and shaped cinema in ways few could have predicted. In 1959, she landed the role of Eve Kendall in Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest. The choice was daring from the start. MGM had originally suggested Sid Charisse, but Hitchcock had another vision. At just 35 years old, Eva was chosen to play opposite Cary Grant, who was 55 at the time. Together, they created one of the most unforgettable thrillers ever made. Hitchcock gave her only 3 rules for the performance: lower her voice, never use her hands, and always look directly into Cary Grant's eyes. For an actress trained in method acting under Lee Strasberg, this minimalist approach was a challenge, yet she carried it flawlessly. Her character was a double agent, appearing both savior and betrayer, and her performance required her to switch seamlessly between the two sides. Behind the glamour of Hitchcock films, however, there were dark stories about what it meant to be one of his so-called blondes. Tippi Hedren revealed that during the filming of The Birds in 1963, Hitchcock ordered live birds to be tied to her by rubber bands so they would claw at her body. She was left cut and bruised, and biographers described the scene as an assault on her both physically and emotionally. Madeleine Carroll had once been handcuffed to Robert Donat during the 39 Steps and wasn't allowed to be released between takes, even when she needed a break. Kim Novak recalled being humiliated when Hitchcock discussed art and wine at dinner, knowing she wouldn't understand. In 2016, Hedren said Hitchcock had sexually assaulted her twice while making The Birds and Marnie. These accounts painted a disturbing picture of a director who used control and cruelty to get what he wanted. Eva Marie Saint, however, told a very different story. Her defense of Hitchcock shocked many. She once said that being one of his leading ladies was like being married to the same man at different times, and each of them had a unique experience. For her, Hitchcock was a gentleman who showed her warmth, humor, and respect. She remembered him as attentive, especially when it came to her wardrobe for North by Northwest. She insisted that her time with him was one of the happiest periods of her life. This stood in sharp contrast to the accounts of women like Hedren, who described the experience as torment. Some believed Hitchcock treated Saint differently because he genuinely respected her. By January 1956, Eva had become one of the highest-paid supporting actresses in Hollywood. She was offered $100,000 to star in Raintree County, alongside Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift. To understand how extraordinary that was, the amount would equal nearly $859,000 in today's money. Just 2 years earlier, for her Oscar-winning debut in On the Waterfront, she had earned only $7,500. The jump represented a staggering 1,233% increase. The production was troubled, particularly after Clift's near-fatal car accident during filming, which permanently changed his appearance. Despite the difficulties, Eva's salary proved just how much Hollywood valued her after her breakthrough. In 1957, she earned a Golden Globe nomination for A Hatful of Rain, a film that was groundbreaking in its honest portrayal of drug addiction. She played the wife of a Korean War veteran struggling with morphine dependency, a subject Hollywood had barely touched at the time. The role showed her emotional strength as she portrayed a woman desperate to help her husband while facing her own breakdown. The movie's raw depiction of withdrawal and domestic turmoil shocked audiences and pushed the boundaries of what stories Hollywood was willing to tell. The 1960s brought her more major roles, beginning with Exodus in 1960, where she starred alongside Paul Newman in a story about the birth of Israel. At that point, she made a choice that changed the course of her career. Despite her growing fame, she limited her work so she could spend more time with her husband, Jeffrey Hayden, and their 2 children. This decision cost her millions and the chance to become one of the era's top stars. She later appeared in The Sandpiper in 1965 with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, a film shaped as much by their off-screen affair as by its story. In 1966, Eva starred in 2 more successful films. The Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming was a Cold War comedy, released at a time when tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were at their peak. She acted alongside Carl Reiner and a young Alan Arkin in what became his breakthrough role. That same year, she appeared in Grand Prix, a visually stunning racing film directed by John Frankenheimer. She played a writer who begins an affair with a married driver, a storyline considered scandalous in mainstream Hollywood at the time. The film went on to win 3 Academy Awards for its technical brilliance. By the 1970s, her career began to slow down dramatically. She appeared in only 2 feature films during the entire decade. Her last one before a 14-year gap was Cancel My Reservation in 1972. In Loving from 1970, she gave one of her strongest performances as the wife of a struggling commercial artist. But Hollywood was changing. Although her naturalistic acting style was exactly what the new Hollywood movement wanted, meaningful roles for women her age became harder to find. She turned more toward television, appearing in the 1971 TV movie Her School for Bachelors. Years later, in 1990, Eva achieved one of her most surprising career triumphs. At the age of 66, she won an Emmy for her role in People Like Us, a miniseries based on Dominic Dunn's novel. She played Lil Van Degen Altimus, a wealthy socialite viewers love to hate. It was her first Emmy win after 5 previous nominations, proving that her talent not only lasted, but had grown stronger with age. The victory came 36 years after her Academy Award for On the Waterfront. Eva Marie Saint's love story began in the most unexpected place, a New York City subway, in 1949. Jeffrey Hayden, a young television director, noticed her not because of her face, but because of the way she carried herself as she walked through the car. What caught his eye even more was a portfolio with her name written in gold letters. Intrigued, he invited her to lunch, and Eva quickly found him to be the most interesting man she had ever met. Their romance moved quickly, and on October 28, 1951, they married. At that time, Eva was working on the television series One Man's Family, while Jeffrey was just starting his career at NBC after graduating from the University of North Carolina. Their marriage came 4 years before Eva's Academy Award win, showing that Jeffrey had fallen for her long before fame touched her life. By 1955, Eva was balancing the demands of Hollywood with a new role as a mother. She attended the Academy Awards 9 months pregnant and walked on stage to accept her Best Supporting Actress Oscar for On the Waterfront. Holding her award, she told the audience she might have the baby right there. 2 days later, on April 1, 1955, her son, Daryl, was born. 3 years later, on July 19, 1958, their daughter, Laurette, arrived. Raising 2 children while maintaining a Hollywood career was no easy task, but Eva managed with patience and determination. Daryl went on to found a company in 2010 that trained creative professionals, while Laurette became a licensed psychotherapist after graduating from Stanford. Eva often said that her greatest pride came not from her career, but from her patience and dedication to her husband, children, and later, her grandchildren. Against all odds, Eva and Jeffrey's marriage lasted an astonishing 65 years, a rare achievement in Hollywood. From their wedding in 1951 until Jeffrey's passing in 2016, they built a partnership that survived changing times, industry challenges, and the pressures of fame. They worked together often, with Jeffrey directing Eva in plays like The Fatal Weakness, Summer and Smoke, Desire Under the Elms, and The Country Girl. They also performed nationwide in Love Letters and On the Divide, with one memorable performance of Love Letters at Bowling Green State University in 2001, just before their 50th anniversary. Eva once said that being married a long time was partly luck, adding that she had simply found a good one. Together, they raised 2 successful children and welcomed 4 grandchildren, creating a family legacy rooted in love rather than publicity. Tragedy struck on December 24, 2016, when Jeffrey died at their Los Angeles home after a year-long battle with cancer. He was 90 years old. For Eva, the timing could not have been more heartbreaking. Christmas Eve, a day that should have been filled with family celebration, became the day her partner of 65 years slipped away. Jeffrey had not only been her husband, but her creative collaborator, having directed classic television series like The Andy Griffith Show, Leave It to Beaver, 77 Sunset Strip, Magnum P.I., and Cagney and Lacey. His death marked the end of their life together, and Eva, at 92, quietly stepped away from her career soon after. The grief that followed left deep marks. In 2018, Eva admitted that it came in waves, and that learning to eat alone after decades of shared meals was one of the hardest adjustments she had ever faced. The sorrow was so consuming that she lost 11 pounds, a dramatic change for her small frame. She turned to Joan Didion's book, The Year of Magical Thinking, which spoke of the author's own loss of her husband, and found comfort in its honesty. She also worked with a hospice therapist who helped her navigate the painful process of widowhood. The combination of therapy and the book gave her both guidance and reassurance that her feelings of sorrow and even her hopes that Jeffrey might somehow return were part of the grieving journey. Despite the pain, Eva found ways to carry on. She continued living independently in her Westwood duplex condominium, astonishingly climbing the stairs daily even after turning 100. Born on July 4, 1924, she had already lived through more than a century of American history by the time she reached her 100th birthday in 2024. That summer, 4 generations of her family gathered in Los Angeles to celebrate with her. Her son, Daryl, now 70, and her daughter, Laurette, 67, organized the event, joined by her 4 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. Family members flew in from Chicago, Santa Barbara, and San Francisco to honor the milestone, surrounding Eva with the love and support she needed to remain strong. Her daily life at 101 still showed remarkable vitality. Each morning she read the Los Angeles Times cover to cover, keeping her mind sharp. On her terrace, she tended to her tomatoes, often comparing them with her daughter Laurette's in a playful competition over whose crop was better. She took long walks in the park, watched her beloved Los Angeles Dodgers, and continued to answer fan mail. She often repeated her personal motto, "Just keep moving," a phrase that guided her both physically and emotionally. Though many would expect her final years to be marked by loneliness, Eva insists she lives a good life. She watches the clouds, sometimes imagining Jeffrey's image in their shifting shapes, and takes comfort when wild impatiens, his favorite flowers, bloom unexpectedly. She still treasures the company of her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, proving that resilience at her age is not about avoiding heartbreak, but about learning to live with it while still welcoming joy. Her story is not one of sadness, but of strength, showing that even after loss, life can still hold meaning, beauty, and love.